Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Metropolis Radio. Today we are going to be talking about the Book of Boba Fett that I believe is coming out on December 29th. So as of the uploading of this video, 6 days from now, so the following Wednesday. And more specifically, there was this article in the Hollywood Reporter titled How the Book of Boba Fett Will Shake Up Star Wars. Director and showrunner Robert Rodriguez takes us inside Disney Plus's ultra-secretive new Mandalorian spinoff. Quote, we couldn't believe what we got to do. Most people working at Disney Plus had no idea this was coming. When the second season finale of The Mandalorian aired on December 18, 2020, a mid-credits scene revealed a spin-off series titled The Book of Boba Fett. This happened just a week after Disney had revealed 10 new Star Wars shows in development during its Investor Day live stream made the announcement all the more baffling. Didn't the company just present its Star Wars slate? Is The Mandalorian canceled? Confused reporters flooded the email inboxes of equally confused publicists, and showrunner Jon Favreau was quickly booked on Good Morning America to clear things up. And I did actually find that interview that he did with Good Morning America. So I will put up that segment here talking specifically about the Book of Boba Fett.
All right, well, you got everybody clamoring for more information because the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian just dropped on Friday, and there was a surprise scene at the end of the credits. And I hope we have a drum roll or something because you've got a big announcement, and I'm just gonna lay it out there. Take it away.
I do. Well, we have at the end of the show, Boba Fett came out and it said the Book of Boba Fett coming coming December of 2021. And that wasn't part of the big Disney announcement, but here's the logo. We wanted to hold this back because we don't want to spoil the surprise during the big Disney announcement of all the shows when Kathleen Kennedy was up there. And so they let me keep this one a secret. So this is actually separate from The Mandalorian Season 3. But what we didn't say in that announcement is that the next show coming up, Kathy said the next chapter, and that's going to be the Book of Boba Fett. And then we go into production right after that on Season 3 of The Mandalorian, back with the main character that we all have known and loved. So that's going to be pretty soon following that.
Okay.
So we're working on that pre-production now while we're in production on Boba Fett.
Oh my goodness, man! I don't know how you keep up because that's all of your work. I was trying to keep up with you describing it to me just now. But is there anything?
So now that we've seen how the Book of Boba Fett was able to remain a secret, let's go ahead and let's get right back to this article. Quote: even Disney didn't know we were going to drop it like that. Marvel's The Book of Boba Fett co-showrunner Robert Rodriguez. I got to see the inner workings, and Favreau and writer, producer, director Dave Filoni kept this a secret from everybody. By the way, I know most of you guys listening to this probably know who Robert Rodriguez is, but for those one or two that don't, this is the guy behind El Mariachi, Desperado, Once Upon a Time in Mexico, the Spy Kids movies, which I grew up on. That's the first thing I think of when I hear the name Robert Rodriguez, but that's only because I'm in my mid-20s. Well, not quite everybody. The studio's top executives in business affairs were in the loop, but still, that Disney Plus would make a show that even shocked many at Disney Plus. Indicates the level of secrecy at the heart of Favreau and Filoni's closely guarded corner of the Star Wars galaxy. Not to mention their rather surprising amount of freedom, given the number of Given the number of Star Wars theatrical projects developed under talents ranging from Game of Thrones showrunners Benioff and Weiss to Wonder Woman director Patty Jenkins that have buckled under the weight of reported quote-unquote creative differences. Well, let's be honest. The Benioff and Weiss trilogy probably got canceled because they both admitted at a Comic-Con, I believe it was San Antonio. It was a San Antonio Comic-Con where they basically admitted, yeah, we had no idea what the hell we were doing. So, wonder why their Star Wars trilogy got shelved. And then you have the Patty Jenkins Rogue Squadron, which can really dedicate an entire video to it. So let's just go ahead and move on. It's a privilege the duo undoubtedly has earned, given The Mandalorian is credited for both reinvigorating the Star Wars brand and successfully launching Disney Plus in 2019. Well, that's probably why they had so much freedom to be able to hide the Book of Boba Fett to begin with. The series became the first non-Netflix show to top Nielsen's weekly streaming chart during its second season, helping propel the nascent streamer to more than 100 million subscribers globally in less than 2 years. Now comes the Book of Boba Fett, premiering December 29th. Hey, I was right about that. As the first of many post-Mandalorian live-action Star Wars series out of Disney Plus's gate. The Mandalorian Season 3 and Obi-Wan Kenobi are landing in 2022, but Boba Fett could be key to helping prove the franchise can successfully expand Star Wars TV beyond Mando and his instantly iconic ward Baby Yoda, and Disney undoubtedly hopes the show will provide another buzzy jolt to Disney Plus's subscriber growth, which has turned sluggish in recent months, as has been the case for many other streaming services. Well, yeah, and there's a number of reasons there's a number of reasons for why streaming services have either plateaued or have been losing subscribers. And one of those could just be that, people are sick and tired of it and moving on, after watching nothing but Netflix, HBO Max, Amazon, Hulu, Disney Plus for the last, 18 to 20 months, and every show practically being the same. But anyway, I'm tangenting for too long. I'm going to get back to this. Boba Fett was designed by Star Wars creator George Lucas, art director Joe Johnston. The Joe Johnston, the guy that would later go on to direct Captain America: The First Avenger. Also, I believe he also did Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, if I'm remembering correctly. But yes, many people don't know that Joe Johnston was one of the first employees at ILM back in the mid to late 70s. And legendary illustrator Ralph McQuarrie for 1980's The Empire Strikes Back. And see, this is where I have to disagree with them, because Boba Fett, even though he was not named, his first appearance was actually in the Star Wars Holiday Special that came out in 1979. The tourist green-helmeted bounty hunter was based loosely on Clint Eastwood's Man with No Name and Sergio Leone's Westerns, right down to jangling spurs on his boots. And George Lucas has come out and admitted that over the years. Fett then suffered a rather ignoble death by falling into the toothy Sarlacc pit in 1983's Return of the Jedi. If you read the original expanded universe before Disney, quietly canceled it, Boba Fett did survive the Sarlacc pit, even like I said, back in the old expanded universe. I believe the first place where they made mention of it was in the Dark Horse comics in the early 90s. Yet, after purchasing Lucasfilm in 2012, Disney had other plans for Fett rather than letting the character, quote-unquote, slowly digest for 1,000 years. A Boba Fett feature film was put into development with Simon Kinberg, Josh Trank, and James Mangold reportedly attached over the years, yet the movie never got off the ground. I believe they recently came out and denied the fact that James Mangold was ever attached to it. I know Josh Trank was, and then he was fired after Fant Forstick bombed so badly. Well, and what didn't help, and I brought this up in the interview that I did with Bob Trait of the Colonial Theater, what probably didn't help Josh Trank's Boba Fett movie was the fact that he came out and slammed his own movie just prior to release. Fett finally was resurrected in the Mandalorian Season 2 episode The Tragedy, with New Zealand actor Tamora Morrison, who played Fett's father Jango in the Star Wars prequels, reprising the role. Yes, he also provided the voice in the Star Wars special editions as well. Favreau approached his longtime friend Rodriguez to direct the key episode. Quote, "He crushed it," Favreau said. "We loved his interpretation of the character, and I pitched him in the studio the idea of doing more." Boba Fett came back in The Mandalorian at the end of the very first episode of Season 2, the one with Timothy Olyphant. I believe it was called The Marshal. It was literally the last scene in the episode. And as soon as he turned his face, it's like, that's Boba Fett, because that's Tamora Morrison, and it's unmistakably Tamora Morrison. For the 53-year-old Rodriguez, a longtime Star Wars fan, the experience was like being inducted into the Jedi Order. And something that, and something that I read a long time, Robert Rodriguez did an interview a long time ago and admitted that he only got into digital filmmaking because he was invited out to Skywalker Ranch and actually, test and use the cameras. And he said, yeah, after that trip, I bought like 3 of them. So yes, he has a connection to, he has a nice connection to Star Wars there. Quote, I can't even say this is a dream come true because I wouldn't have even thought to dream this, Rodriguez says during a sit down at his Troublemaker Studios in Austin. The Alita Battle Angel and Sin City directors arguably a perfect fit for Favreau and Filoni's Star Wars hub, even though the devoutly independent filmmaker says he normally doesn't like to get involved with franchises unless they're his creations, such as his 4 Spy Kids films. Quote, I usually avoid premiere properties. You'll never be able to please everybody. It's a losing game, Rodriguez says. I'd rather go do something I've created so nobody can say, hey, that's wrong because I created it so it can be anything I want it to be. I love that freedom. That changed with Boba because he was a character that was always underserved. It was a character way more popular than he should have been based on his limited screen time. So it's almost like starting with an original character. You can kind of do anything you want so long as you make him cool and don't make him a buffoon. Filoni, who headed the Clone Wars animated series, has a theory as to why fans have remained fascinated with Fett despite him having only 6 minutes of screen time in the original trilogy. Quote, I think the design of the costume, especially the helmet, is iconic, he says. The details from the dent on the crown of the helmet, the emblems, scuff marks, cloak, and braids all spoke of a greater story and adventure that the character had experienced. I thought it was always fun to imagine what those adventures were. Now we get to tell some of them. If the Book of Boba Fett teaser trailers released so far seem a bit less than epic, it's due to a deliberate act of restraint. The producers have only released footage from the seven episodes opening minutes. Quote, we can't use the second half of the first episode because it gives too much away, Rodriguez says. But the basics are that Boba and his assassin partner, Fennec Shen, played by Ming-Na Wen, have taken over Jabba the Hutt's palace on Tatooine, a move that sends them on a journey into the previously unseen Star Wars underworld of crime families. Quote, Boba gives us a direct connection to the Star Wars saga since he was involved in that story, Filoni says. This creates a nice crossover point for both classic characters and new characters. Much of The Mandalorian was new or had not been seen on screen. Through Boba Fett, we can weave some of those characters and tales together using a character we know but don't know a lot about. Rodriguez adds that the character specifically, quote, invites a whole world from the underworld in with him. Things turn up you don't expect. You see things we couldn't believe we got to do, he says. Every episode has big surprises. Whoops, scroll a little too far. Here we go. The producers' hits combine to suggest some familiar faces or helmets might be showing up, especially if the series not only flashes back to how Fett escaped the Sarlacc pit. They are going to have to do that for the casual fans. You know, how did Boba Fett exactly escape the Sarlacc pit? You know, as fans hope, but just perhaps to other moments during Fett's unseen time during the original trilogy era as well. The Book of Boba Fett is unusual for a franchise action series in that it stars a 60-year-old Morrison and a 58-year-old Wen who somehow still looks like she gets carted in bars. Quote, you never feel like they're an older cast. They're so youthful and energized, Rodriguez says. Tem and I work out together. He really is Boba Fett, and for Wen, I would design whole sequences just to end on her and the look she would give Boba because she's so badass. Tem knows that his moment. Tem knows that is his moment, and she knows this is her moment. And when you get actors like that, they go for it, and it's palpable. Adds Filoni, Tem brings the intensity and sense of weathered experience that a well-traveled bounty hunter needs while maintaining a sense of fun and adventure. He had more dialogue than Fett has ever had to deliver, but it's also a very physical role, and Tem was there for it, training and enduring a lot of action. Wen's character was introduced in the first season of Mandalorian, and then was seemingly killed off. There was no seemingly, she says with a laugh. It was very clear at the time, but Favreau and Filoni had a change of heart and decided to concoct a storyline whereby Boba revived Fennec and the duo teamed up. When Wen made her deal to return, she thought she was simply signing on to more Mandalorian. Quote, they're so secretive that when dealing with the contracts, there isn't even a title for the show. It's all under pseudonym, she says. I naturally assumed I was doing Mandalorian Season 3 until I showed up on set. Wen adds that the spinoff feels more gritty than the other series. Quote, we've always dealt with the Empire and the Jedis. This was about these gangster families and has a rawness to it, she says. It's quite different from The Mandalorian, which is more like a Western. Part of the show's challenge will be distinguishing Fett from Disney Plus's other stoic helmeted bounty hunter I'm kind of jumping ahead of myself there, and I blame myself for this, so I'll slow down a little bit. Part of the show's challenge will be distinguishing Fett from Disney Plus's other stoic helmeted bounty hunter. Mando was a character inspired by Boba Fett without technically being Boba Fett, right down to Mando freezing his captured fugitives in carbonite. One difference will come as a bit of a relief. Unlike Mando, whose creed mandates that he conceal his identity, season 2 did away with that. Fett doesn't seem to have any particular qualms about removing his helmet, freeing the spinoff from the flagship series off frustrating instance on hiding star Pedro Pascal's face. Rodriguez also points out that Fett's scant prior screen time leaves a lot of wiggle room for invention. The filmmaker seized onto King Conan and The Godfather as specific inspirations. Quote, Boba bites off more than he can chew, and we definitely do not make it easier for him, Rodriguez says. It's easy to sit on the throne, it's not easy to stay on. So what's it like for a bounty hunter to have suddenly become a leader? Where's the push and pull in that? What is he trying to become? We really go in depth with the character. For Rodriguez, joining Star Wars has roots going back decades, and his career has intersected with the franchise in unexpected ways. While many genre filmmakers cite The Empire Strikes Back as an influential favorite, Rodriguez was perhaps even more impacted by an hour-long making-of special about Empire that aired on CBS. A 12-year-old Rodriguez taped the special on a VCR and wore out the tape over the years, he said, quote, that's really what got me into filmmaking, just seeing the craftsmanship the movie took. There's no CG, it was all models and stop motion. It made me want to go do that stuff. Fast forward to 2001, when Rodriguez was sound mixing Spy Kids at Skywalker Ranch. I knew I was remembering correctly. Since his debut with 1992's El Mariachi, which he famously shot for just $7,000, the filmmaker has typically worn many hats. IMDb credits him with crew positions ranging from soundtrack composer on 17 projects to editor 30 projects to camera operator 11 projects. When Lucas heard a young filmmaker was mixing his film's sound himself at the Marin County studio, he invited Rodriguez up to his office for a chat. Quote, George said, you should check out these digital cameras I'm using, and showed me some green screen tricks, and that's what got me into shooting digital, Rodriguez says. He was a mentor at a stage where I went from doing films like From Dusk Till Dawn and Desperado to doing the pioneering all green screen film Sin City. I knew I was remembering it correctly because I do remember him coming out over the years and saying something very similar. In addition to sharing a love of technical innovation, Lucas and Rodriguez also have in common a sort of insider-outsider status. They strive to make popular films for wide audiences while maintaining their independence and control in hubs far from Hollywood. Rodriguez shoots most of his work in Austin, though Boba Fett was shot in Los Angeles, helping fuel the region's production boom. Here we go. As Rodriguez tells it, his Lucas-inspired segue into digital filmmaking eventually led to getting hired to direct writer-producer James Cameron's long gestating passion project, Alita Battle Angel, in 2019, a live-action anime adaptation that was widely praised for its CG work and became the biggest production ever shot in Texas. Quote, John saw Alita and that got me into Mandalorian, Rodriguez says, but the only reason I started doing high-tech filmmaking way back when in Austin, of all places, was because of George. So as a certain Sith Lord once intoned, the circle is now complete. Asked if he discussed the Book of Boba Fett with Lucas during shooting, Rodriguez goes still, quote, I can't tell you, he says, and you don't need Jedi mind powers to figure that one out. Yeah, that's true. Filming for the Book of Boba Fett began in late November 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic, which played to Rodriguez's strength as an indie filmmaker accustomed to plowing forward and improvising amid uncertain conditions. Quote, I came out of the gate firing away. Let's shoot, because we might not be here next week. We might get shut down, he says. But we never got shut down, so I was showing sequences already edited to John and Dave after the first 3 weeks, and they were like, I can't believe how much you shot already. We kept shooting every day like it was going to be our last day. The pandemic also impacted the show's creative as it incentivized the team to provide some escapist relief for fans. Quote, it was a bleak time that spurred us on even more just to make everything as entertaining as possible, Rodriguez says. While the budget for the project isn't known, it's likely somewhere in the ballpark of $100 million Disney spent for The Mandalorian's debut. Rodriguez wound up directing nearly half of the episodes himself, 3 of the quote-unquote big ones, as he puts it, as well as voicing 2 characters, including the mayor, whose voiceover is heard in the trailer. Before shooting sequences, Wen says the father of 5 would previs ideas by filming with action figures in his backyard with his kids, once again drawing on his 12-year-old self, then show the footage to the actors with sound effects. Rodriguez had to adhere to certain Star Wars standards, however, which sometimes meant coloring inside the lines. Quote, there was nobody going, these are the rules. It was more like me saying, this color feels safe and we want it to feel more dangerous. So can we change it to this color? He says, and they go, these are the colors we've used. So let's try one of these out, but I can't reveal what. So revealing a color would be a spoiler. Quote, it'll be evident when you see the show. Looking forward, Rodriguez has recently finished filming an action thriller, Hypnotic, starring Ben Affleck. He's developed a modern-day female-led Zorro reboot directed by his sister Rebecca Rodriguez. He also recently signed an overall deal with HBO Max and has partnered with Cinedigm to relaunch his self-curated El Rey cable channel, which focused on indie genre titles as a streaming service. A much speculated Alita sequel is still possible. Quote, Jim and I talked about it recently, and we're still very interested. He says, I told him, let me deliver Boba and let's figure out a pitch. As for Bounty Hunter's future, it's never been clear whether Boba Fett is meant to be a limited or a recurring series, and no surprise, the producers aren't saying. Rodriguez thinks there's a good chance this is only the beginning of Fett's return, though the director is currently signed for the debut season alone. Quote, if people really love it, I'm sure they'd want to make more, he says. And if they do, fans might literally be the first to know. And here's my thing before I close this off. Personally, I think that they need to go into the Book of Boba Fett with the idea that we are making a miniseries instead of teasing what's going to happen 5 seasons from now. Just in case if the show doesn't take off, they can just write it off as a one-off miniseries and just call it a day. But if you have too much foreshadowing for the future, I believe that could really hinder the show, because if you look at The Mandalorian, and Disney Lucasfilm has done this before, Mandalorian season 1 didn't really have a lot of foreshadowing for season 2. Now, once you got into season 2, over half of it was like backdoor pilots, reveals for season 3, reveals for Rangers of the New Republic, which I believe has now been shelved, which I believe has now been canceled. So if they approach the Book of Boba Fett with the idea that this is going to be a mini series, and if the show takes off and we do a second season, great. I think that that's going to really help it, versus trying to foreshadow to, well, you're going to have to wait until season 2 or 3 before we tell you how this pays off. But I'm actually curious, guys. Are you interested in the Book of Boba Fett? I'm very cautiously optimistic going into it. I'm the type of person, I don't really get too hyped for a lot of things anymore, because I've just been too disappointed with too many things over the years. And guys, before I tangent off for too long, I'm going to go ahead and end it right here. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for doing so. And if you've been following me long enough, I'm terrible at editing these videos, so I'll just see you guys next time.